Between the demise of WCW and the rise of All Elite Wrestling, Jeff Jarrett built TNA Impact as the alternative to World Wrestling Entertainment. Jarrett and his father, Jerry Jarrett, launched TNA in June 2002 and launched the Impact television program in 2004. When asked about his opinion on AEW, Jarrett stated, "The timing when TNA started, coming off the Attitude Era, and the timing when AEW started are radically different worlds. Pre-social media world coming off the Attitude Era. When TBS and TNT canceled wrestling, I couldn't even get a phone call from a network. Fast forward, the big rights fees with NBC and Fox, and the Peacock situation, and Sony around the world and India, and all the different markets. It's a completely different playing field of 2002 and 2019 in the launch period. The climate is completely different. The television ratings are completely different." Jarrett believes that AEW is a viable alternative to WWE and that there should always be an alternative. Jarrett states, "It's the best for business to always have an alternative. It's just what makes business go around. If you're the only game in town, you're not number one because there isn't a number two." For more of the latest news from your favorite wrestling TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time. The Young Bucks are masters when it comes to the business side of pro wrestling, as they continue to sell tons of merchandise. They have cashed in on a variety of incidents over the years, especially involving WWE. Now it seems they have signed new contracts. They are also known for their expensive sneaker collection and recently decided to take a hilarious shot at the NXT roster for their choice of sneakers. Due to this, they even caused quite a stir when dragging the entire NXT locker room. According to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the Young Bucks have signed a new deal with AEW. It was said that they signed a contract that will keep them in the company till 2026, so they signed a 5-year deal. The Young Bucks were also not cleared to wrestle after AEW Full Gear. We will have to wait and see when they will be able to compete inside the squared circle again, and who they will feud with next. We're all excited to see them back in action soon on AEW. For more latest wrestling news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time.
Former WWE superstar W. Morrissey, formerly known as Big Cass, is currently a free agent. His most recent contract with Impact Wrestling expired soon after beating Matt Cardona at Turning Point. According to Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp, Morrissey is currently in a renegotiation period with Impact Wrestling after reports surfaced that he's looking for a big money deal. According to sources close to Impact, Morrissey feels he has proven himself in every aspect of his character, in-ring ability, and behavior outside the ring. He feels he deserves a bigger contract than the short-term one he signed earlier this year. During his time with Impact, he picked up impressive wins over Willie Mack, Rich Swann, and Eddie Edwards, having lost only twice in singles competition. In the Fightful Select report, Morrissey expressed happiness with his time in Impact, which is a pleasant surprise as he's had an up-and-down time finding his footing since being released by WWE in 2018. Known as Big Cass in WWE, Morrissey reached the height of his popularity while teaming with former Cruiserweight champion Enzo Amore. Not long after the duo's main roster debut, Morrissey had a singles run that didn't pan out as planned. For more wrestling news from your favorite promotions, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time.
Juice Robinson opens up about how the pandemic has changed in life, and addresses his future with New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact. The world was turned upside down when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. On the wrestling side of things, the business shifted. While promotions like AEW and WWE still ran shows, many others did not have that luxury. Fans saw independent wrestling come to a halt, a large decrease in travel for talent, and the removal of crowds from the live shows. Juice Robinson was one of those talents that was traveling to countries like Japan and staying for an extended period of time. In an interview, he points out how drastically his life has changed since the start of the pandemic. "My life coming out of this pandemic was way better than it was going in. My life has totally changed. We don't need to get personal about my life story and stuff, but when this all started I had a little bachelor studio apartment in Tokyo, next to Shinjuku Station, the world's largest train station, so I was living a fast bachelor lifestyle. Not saying I didn't want to settle down, but there were no signs of slowing down. Now I am sitting in a house that I bought, I am engaged, I am gonna be married, I have a dog running around annoying me as we speak, it's just a crazy thing." Robinson's life is certainly different now, and it was recently reported by Sports Illustrated that Juice Robinson's contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling would be expiring come February 2022. Will he be resigning from the company? While we didn't get a clear yes or no answer, Robinson did state the following: "I'll always be with New Japan in my heart. Those are my guys, those are my boys, those are my people that gave me the chance. I'll never turn my back on New Japan. But right now my life has just changed. I am just not that 25-year-old kid with a Paul McCartney autobiography in his book bag wanting to travel the world anymore. That's just not who I am. But I still want to be part of New Japan, and I just don't know how I am going to be, but I will be." As for how his future might look, he also noted that, "I think right now I am just gonna float for a while because right now there are so many other things on my mind really than wrestling. So I don't really know where I am going to be next year with wrestling. I might get fired up to do it, I might not. I don't really know. We shall see. I might just float for a while. I think it's time for me just to do my thing, be my own boss, and just do what I want to do on a weekly basis." Juice Robinson has been appearing on Impact Wrestling since February of 2021 when he debuted 3 days after they teased a video package of Robinson and his tag team partner David Finlay at No Surrender. They even held the Impact World Tag Team Championship belts for 65 days as Finjuice. I love Impact. It's what I really like. I like lights, camera, action, here we go. TV wrestling, that's what I grew up on, that's what I grew up manifesting in my brain. As a child on my trampoline, in my living crawling across the room reaching for the tag, I always viewed myself in front of the camera in a US company. So that it right there makes me so happy to do it all the time, because it's so different from what I am used to in Japan. I never knew that I would just land in Japan, and that I would take to it, or I don't even know if I did take to it, but I just ended up going, and I just didn't come back for 5 years. It was a job, it was an open-ended thing, and it stuck, but I don't know if I am natural at that of the way I do it at New Japan. I feel more natural sometimes in an Impact setting." For more wrestling news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time. Bryan Danielson discussed his AEW contract during an appearance on Busted Open Radio. He discussed what he expects from this run with the company, believing it is the peak of his career. "So, I signed a 3-year contract with AEW, and I consider these like my final years as a full-time wrestler. But also not just like, okay, this is me just winding down. This is to me, this is the peak," Bryan admitted. "This is going to be the best that I am ever going to be in ending my full-time career at that, ending it as the best version of myself." Bryan Danielson also discussed the Ring of Honor hiatus that the company is undergoing. He admitted the focus is on the talent, and he feels for them due to a lack of full-time work available. "I was just sad. I guess what the hard part with all of it is, I think of as the people with the jobs. They're not going to do the full-time contracts or anything like that anymore. This is coming in a year when we've still got the pandemic going on," he added. "We've got a lot of people being cut from the WWE side. There's not a ton of full-time jobs out there. People sign these contracts and they buy houses on these contracts, they think it's guaranteed money. Where that really hits hard for me is I was fired twice by WWE. It's funny because both times I was fired shortly after buying a new car," he revealed. "You have to think, none of these are nice cars and they're used cars. But in both of them, I wasn't able to pay it off in full. The first time, especially in 2001 when I got fired, I had a $350 a month car payment. All of a sudden that car payment, I was having to work 2 jobs between that and insurance and all that kind of stuff. I had bought that car with the idea that I was going to make $500 a week for the next 3 years or whatever it is. All of a sudden you don't have that guaranteed money coming in. The former Ring of Honor star also spoke about the comeback for the company. He admitted that he would like to see them be awesome again, as it is great for everyone. What I hope is that they will come back with a reinvigoration with a plan and come back and be awesome. The more awesome wrestling companies there are, the better it is for everybody, he stated. That's one of the things that has been great now. AEW has been great for wrestling fans, but it has also been great for wrestlers. For more wrestling news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you tomorrow.
Impact Wrestling's Jessica McKay and Cassie Lee have seemingly been together forever. The Australian duo are, of course, well known for their time in WWE as the Iconics, where they were able to establish themselves as recognizable stars. But that was then, and this is now. Today, known as The Inspiration, the pair are much more than tag team partners. They are best friends who are almost like sisters. Training and traveling together, and finding success with one another in the world of professional wrestling. Before coming to the United States, they had faced each other in the ring, but ironically, they had never tagged together. Now they stand tall as the recently crowned Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champions. In an interview with Sportskeeda, The Inspiration discussed their time together as a team and their experiences so far with Impact Wrestling. Jessica McKay talked about how different the environment was when they joined their new promotion. Jessica McKay said, "I think the biggest difference is just how much of a family it is at Impact. We felt very welcomed right off the bat, which we appreciate and we are so grateful for. Everyone was so welcoming and had great things to say. It was really fun time for us to come to Impact when we did, and we're really happy to be here." The Inspiration also talked about what it was like to be a part of the legendary Knockouts division. With names like Gail Kim, Awesome Kong and Taya Valkyrie among the long list of legends who have revolutionized women's wrestling, McKay said they appreciate being a part of it. McKay commented, "It's really rewarding. There are incredible women who have come through Impact Wrestling. They were really the first company to prioritize their women and to put them in the main event. So it's been really, really cool to be a part of such a historic women's division." At Bound for Glory, The Inspiration defeated Decay for the Impact Knockouts Tag Team titles. When asked what the future holds for Inspiration, Cassie Lee had a very simple answer. "We want to prove that we are the best tag team ever." For more wrestling news from your favorite promotions, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time.
Jim Cornette said CM Punk would have to start building from scratch if he ever went back to WWE, while the same applies to Brock Lesnar in AEW. The WWE legend was asked on his podcast to compare both CM Punk and Brock Lesnar's star power. Cornette discussed the possibility of a matchup in AEW for Brock Lesnar, but he wouldn't necessarily fit in that world. What's more, Cornette said the same would be true of Punk. It's a hypothetical fantasy question, yes, but it shows context. Who else is going to be his dance partner? And what has a past history where it has brought us up until now? When you change people, sometimes, you need to change somebody from one company to the other to fresh them up. But sometimes, it means you have to pretty much start from scratch. Jim Cornette then elaborates on how Brock Lesnar fits the WWE style, while Punk may not in his current avatar. He elaborates that the reverse could be true of Lesnar in AEW. You wouldn't have to start anything from scratch with Brock Lesnar, he fits the WWE. He fits their style. In AEW, you wouldn't have that. But by the same token, if Punk went to WWE again, the same thing would be true. He'd have history, but you have to start building things from scratch, And I don't know if that fan base would be as excited to see CM Punk back, as the AEW fan base is to see him there. Judging by Cornette's comments, CM Punk and Brock Lesnar are not interchangeable. In his opinion, both are stars, but they appeal to different fan bases. Although an interesting opinion, some fans on both sides of the aisle might have differing views. While CM Punk traded barbs with Maxwell Jacob Friedman in an incredible segment last week on AEW Dynamite, it's still unclear when the two will face each other. Fans are certain to be looking forward to this long-awaited matchup, whenever it does take place. For more exciting wrestling news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time. Jim Cornette is not always the biggest fan of Tony Khan or All Elite Wrestling. However, recently Cornette has praised Tony Khan for signing Jay Lethal to AEW. Jay Lethal is a veteran of the professional wrestling business, having made his debut all the way back in 2001. He had a great run in TNA, where he got over for his gimmick of impersonating other stars, such as Macho Man. Most notably, he impersonated Ric Flair in what has now become one of his funniest and most iconic segments. Black Machismo Jay Lethal was the only surprise debutant at AEW Full Gear, and Jim Cornette was quite pleased to see him in Tony Khan's promotion. On the Jim Cornette Experience, the legendary booker said, "So now it's AEW again. As people go over the pay-per-view, they see Jay Lethal? By the way, we've to congratulate Tony Khan, you did something right for once." No, I don't need to congratulate Jay Lethal. He deserves it. Actually, he deserves better. But I congratulate Tony for figuring out that Jay Lethal was available and he could sign him up. He's been there. For 4 years Jay Lethal has been an untapped resource. He's been in other promotions, has been happy and contractually committed there. But you know, I've always thought that he deserved a top spot where the most people could see what he can do while he still can so. Jay Lethal was introduced to the audience present at the Target Center in Minnesota. The greatest first-generation wrestler greeted the fans before revealing why he was there in AEW. Up till now, he has had great matches on AEW Dark, and with Sammy Guevara. The future looks bright for both Lethal and AEW. For more exciting wrestling news from your favorite wrestling promotions, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time. Jeff Hardy embarrassed not only Sting and his employer, but the entire wrestling world after he showed up intoxicated for the main event of TNA's 2011 Victory Road pay-per-view. As Hardy made his entrance, it was obvious that he was in no shape to wrestle. The icon Sting watched in disgusted and frustration. 2 minutes later, he hit his Scorpion Death Drop and made the cover to win the World Championship. Hardy recently talked about the match to Steve Austin on Broken Skull Sessions. The charismatic enigma told Stone Cold that it was embarrassing. He said the incident was an accident and a huge mistake. Soma hadn't become a controlled substance yet. So I was still taking the Somas. But I do remember talking to Sting before I got too altered to even walk out there, hardly. We were gonna do this spot with his finishing move, the Scorpion Death Drop, but my head was gonna be in a chair. And I remember being scared of that. Oh, I might really hurt my neck doing that, but it's gonna be awesome if I don't. So yeah, I just took too much. By the time it was time for me to go out there, they had to find me. Former TNA executive producer Eric Bischoff came out there. They had to shut it down. He had to take it home real quick, and that was the right thing. They had to do it. To screw up like I did that night, it was just insane. But one positive asset that I have by looking back at that footage is, just so embarrassing. Oh my god, just shameful. Out there with my hero in the main event. All these people are watching. But then to do that? Jeff Hardy said the incident was the catalyst for him to recommit himself to staying sober. He said his efforts were rewarded when he enjoyed one of the best years of his in-ring career. After that is when I really got it together. So flash forward to like 2012-2013. 2012 was one of the best wrestling years in my life in that company. I was on fire. I started doing the paint with the eyes and my creativity was just off the charts because I was completely sober, and that's when everything got really good. In his latest interview with VL Media, Jeff has confirmed that he wants to play the character of Will-O-the-Wisp character in WWE. Jeff Hardy is considered one of the most innovative superstars in Vince's brand. Starting with his in-ring moves and his ever-colorful looks, the charismatic enigma does not shy away from trying out anything new. The former Hardy Boys member revealed that he is optimistic about trying out the Will-O-the-Wisp character, and is even getting a new mask made for him. Jeff further stated that if the mask suits him and matches his aesthetics, he has got something to pitch to the producers. I think it's possible. I am also waiting for a new mask to be created, and if it suits me, if I feel comfortable in it, and if it is aesthetically beautiful, I will have an idea to pitch. We will see what it gives. It may never happen, but the cool thing about WWE and wrestling in general is that anything is possible. I think it would be really different from the current Jeff Hardy, and it will have to stand out from what has been done with The Fiend and Bray Wyatt to some extent. My two personalities can exist on the screen, and it can be done in a very nice way if they accept my idea. Will-O-the-Wisp would sort of be Jeff Hardy's demon that would appear every now and then. I don't know if people could boo him because they'll be excited to see him. Hardy stated on Broken Skull Sessions with Stone Cold Steve Austin that he has never pitched an idea to Vince McMahon, the CEO of WWE. For Hardy, it was always Michael Hayes who he thought had a great mind for attractive storylines. Jeff Hardy has always been a fan favorite, and you can bet his fans are excited to hear about this character. For more exciting news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. AEW's inception arrived with a boom at Double or Nothing 2019, and since then, the company has done all it could to provide a product that true lovers of pro wrestling would enjoy. For the most part, they have succeeded, but there is still a lot of room for improvement. It seems Jim Cornette criticized AEW once again. AEW has all the momentum in the world right now thanks to the debuts of CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole to their roster, ensuring that the roster is one of the most stacked in all of pro wrestling. One of the disadvantages of AEW is the fact that it has far too many talents for its own good at times. Due to this, many talents go underutilized after brief pushes. While speaking on his podcast Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru, Cornette talked about AEW not utilizing talents properly. He dragged the company for dropping the ball on talents such as Brian Pillman Jr. and Powerhouse Hobbs. You really cannot develop Powerhouse Hobbs if you are not even able to see Hobbs. They start these projects where any number of people have potential and okay, let's get it going, and then they just go away. Whether it is Brian Pillman Jr. or Hobbs or any of the other people we have talked about. Yeah, that was good for a couple of weeks only. And you do not just let people drop in every so often if you are genuinely trying to get wrestlers over. There is no doubt AEW will keep on striving to better their product so that fans remain happy for as long as possible. With Tony Khan at the helm, the company is going through a lot of changes over the past few months. However, we do wonder whether the aforementioned talents will get more focus in the coming weeks or not. However, Cornette was quick to praise the newest addition to the AEW roster, Hook, the son of ringside commentator Taz. Hook, who is the son of AEW commentator and former ECW and WWE star Taz, has been featured on AEW television as the silent enforcer of Team Taz. Many fans doubted he would ever wrestle in the first place. It seems Jim Cornette is a fan of Hook already. Hook made his in-ring debut on last week's episode of AEW Rampage, where he squared off against Fuego del Sol. Hook was certainly very impressive in his in-ring debut, as he made short work of Del Sol. His impressive win even resulted in Hook blowing up on social media, and his debut racked up larger numbers than even Braun Breaker's did. AEW held off his debut for a good reason as well. While speaking on his podcast, Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru, Jim Cornette gave massive props to Hook for his excellent debut. Cornette stated that Hook would be amazing even if his personality is like wet lettuce. I love this kid. Before this we had not seen enough of the guy to know if he could do anything or not. Hook is in great shape, but more importantly, he has the attitude. The facial expressions and just the way he comes off when he's healing the people. He is just naturally gifted, and I know Taz has been training him, and he has been training with a bunch of different people, but he possesses traits you can't teach. If his personality was a bag of wet lettuce, and he just carried himself really well, especially when he realized he was getting over, and he doing well. He does the judo throws, he is smooth with it, and he possesses a whole different style than anybody else. A lot of it is aggression. Even though he is green, he is still aggressive. The AEW roster was also ecstatic about Hook's in-ring debut. Fans also believe Hook will become world champion in AEW someday. It remains to be seen what is next in store for Hook now that he has already impressed many within the company. For more wrestling news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling.
Sammy Guevara shared some unfortunate news on his Instagram account, as he broke the news that he and his fiancée Pam have parted ways. Guevara said they are no longer in a relationship, though they still love each other and wish nothing but the best for one another. Guevara said that they appreciated all of the support from the fans over the years and so wanted to share the news with them first, and then asked for some privacy at this time. Our thoughts go out to Sammy. Guevara wrote, "I know a lot of you have supported us for a long time and we have appreciated it so much over the past several years. Since you've all given us so much love and support, we figured we owed it to you all to let you know that we are no longer in a relationship. We still love each other and wish nothing but the best for one another. We would appreciate your kindness and respect to our privacy during this time. Sam and Pam. AEW fans got to witness a big moment for Sam and Pam firsthand, as Guevara proposed to Pam on an episode of Dynamite. He was in the ring and shouted out Pam, who was in the crowd, and mentioned that she was with him when he had no car, working at Taco Bell, and wrestling in front of 7 people. He then brought her into the ring and said, "I've wondered what I would ever do without you, and I want to make sure I never have to find that out." He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out the ring and props, and she said yes to a celebrating crowd. Unfortunately, things got a bit complicated after Guevara revealed the end of the engagement, as people started blaming AEW wrestler Tay Conti for the breakup. Tay and Sammy have been pictured together a bit recently and were involved in a video a while back where people commented suggesting that the two were screwing, which they made a joke of at the time. People have used that video, the fact Tay Conti has split from her husband, and other wild speculation to leap to the conclusion that the two young AEW stars were having an affair, which is why the engagement ended. The speculation got so bad that Tay Conti ended up getting harassed on Twitter by fans that were angry that she broke Sammy and Pam up, which led to her having to delete her Twitter account. Sammy Guevara was also forced to add a further note to his initial statement to clarify that no one is responsible for the breakup. "This shouldn't have to be said. But my relationship with Pam ending had nothing to do with anyone else," he said. "Pam and I broke up back in October and just now felt was the time to make it publicly known. So please stop pointing fingers and looking for someone to blame." For more wrestling news and weekly ratings war, subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time.
Matt Hardy has been a member of AEW's roster for nearly 2 years now, and in a new interview with Essentially Sports he broke down the biggest difference between his current boss, AEW President Tony Khan, and his old boss, WWE Chairman Vince McMahon, the difference being approachability. "I think AEW is very special because the mentality AEW uses, starting from Tony Khan all the way down, is really just, come in, do your job, work hard, be part of the team, and let's make this product as good as possible. They don't really try and force people into a hierarchy, they don't try and reign by fear. And everyone is allowed to feel comfortable. If you have an issue, you can talk to anyone. Tony Khan is so accessible. If you need to address Tony Khan, then you can speak to him, where at WWE it's quite the opposite with Vince. Vince is very hard to be able to speak with," he added. "And Tony, I just feel like Tony has the current mindset of the wrestling fan in 2021. So he can kind of make that come alive through his wrestlers, and the way he puts together and books shows. It's just such a comfortable family environment where everyone feels like if you need to speak out, if you need to address something, you can. Everyone is comfortable in AEW, and it really does feel like a really big family." He then discussed how Khan shows more of his passion for pro wrestling than McMahon does. "They're both ridiculously hard workers. There's no doubt about that. Vince works his ass off. No one can ever take that away from him. Tony does as well. And on top of also running AEW, Tony has so many other responsibilities. He has stuff to do with the NFL's Jacksonville Jaguars, he has Fulham, the football team over in the UK. He has a lot of stuff going on. But he is so passionate about pro wrestling, and you can tell. At his core he's a pro wrestling fan. I think that translates helping him be more passionate as a boss or as a booker. And I feel that it allows him to do an even better job. I feel like he's very thorough. And he also really respects the AEW wrestling fans, and he does everything he can to not insult their intelligence. If they're going to invest their time in watching weeks of a story, he's going to make sure to reward them by giving them a big payoff to the story as well." What do you make of Matt Hardy's comments? Do you think there are more differences than similarities when it comes to Tony Khan and Vince McMahon? Let us know your thoughts by sounding off in the comments section below. During a recent appearance on the Talk is Jericho podcast, AEW superstar Jay Lethal commented on making the decision to sign with AEW, Ring of Honor's hiatus, and more. On making the decision to sign with AEW, Lethal said, "As soon as they dropped that bomb on us, we're in the Zoom call, and they dropped this bomb on us. A whole roster Zoom call. 50 people. One telltale sign that something bad was happening was normally these Zoom calls just involve the people who are about to do our TV tapings. This Zoom call had literally everybody, even the people that were overseas that couldn't make the show. I was like, oh boy. Literally, while the Zoom meeting is going on in the middle of this big announcement, I'm already thinking, oh man, what's the next step for me? So after the Zoom call meeting, about a day or two go by, I decide, you know what, I think I know what I want to do. I'm going to try to go to AEW. I asked for my release because, of course, nobody will talk to you, because that's the thing too, we were still all under contract. I even flew myself out to Baltimore. I didn't call them, I didn't send a message. I flew myself to Baltimore so I could meet with Joe Koff, and the other guy's name was Greg because they've been so good to me. They've treated me amazing. It was very sad to have to do that. I flew out there, asked for my release, told them how much of a pleasure it was to work with them, and as fast as they could they got me. It took a day or so because legal, I'm sure they were going crazy with all their problems. It took a day or so to get it finalized, and then after that, I could finally have my talks. I didn't even talk to Tony Khan. I talked to almost everybody except for him. The first time I actually met Tony Khan was at Full Gear. That's how I came to being in AEW. On being caught off guard by Ring of Honor's decision to go on hiatus, Lethal commented, completely out of the blue, and not to give too much, I'm not sure who I'll piss off by saying too much of this, but we had gotten an email announcing that we were going to be having this Zoom meeting and the email sounded promising, like, hey, we got a taping that's coming up, we're going to discuss 2022, the early parts of it. So yeah, all of us were like, alright, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. So going into the meeting, I can't speak for everybody, but I was definitely caught off guard. When asked what he actually thinks of Ring of Honor's hiatus, there's two reasons, I think. The main one is, during the pandemic, they tried so hard to take care of everybody, which a lot of companies were doing. A lot of companies were taking care of their people, not releasing too many people, still paying everyone, which they did. But I do think they tried to go above and beyond, and had us all sitting home protected while still paying everybody. So there are no shows, no money coming in for almost the whole year. They did do a good job in trying to protect us and keep everybody safe, even though everyone on the roster was willing to go and have those shows. We were all willing to travel, but they wanted us to stay home and keep safe. I think that really put us in the red. The shows that we did have, I don't know for sure, but the amount of money that I heard they spent on testing and everybody having their own room and the doctors plus all the hoops they had to go through, I heard the figures were unreal. So I think that was the biggest thing that led us to this. What do you think about this situation? Did Jay Lethal betray his former company? Let us know what you think in the comments section. For more wrestling news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time. Wrestling legend Jim Cornette has explained in great detail why he believes WWE should be concerned about the rise of AEW. All Elite Wrestling changed the wrestling business forever when it was announced on New Year's Day in 2019. In less than 3 years, the company now boasts a stacked roster that includes Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and Adam Cole, in addition to many of the AEW originals such as Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, and the Young Bucks. WWE initially seemed cautious in regard to a potential competitor and looked to lock in talent to huge deals as well as get NXT onto television from the WWE Network, as the black and gold brand was going head-to-head with AEW Dynamite when the latter debuted in October 2019. Since then, the short-lived Wednesday night wars have ended, but AEW has grown into the recognized #2 promotion in the United States and proved again that they are an attractive destination as former NXT Tag Team Champion Kyle O'Reilly debuted on AEW Dynamite. Speaking on his Jim Cornette Experience podcast, the former manager of the Midnight Express explained why he feels WWE paying no heed to AEW would be an error. Instead of saying NXT 2.0, they might as well say the promotion formerly known as NXT. They've run off everyone's favorites from there. They've run off Danielson, they couldn't entice Punk to come back into the fold, and now they need to worry about AEW. They've not just let talent go from the WWE roster that the WWE didn't want to use, they have let a number go that are very valuable to AEW. Now we are in a promotional war again apparently. Now they have let so many difference makers go or be free to go, now we are back in a promotional war. Cornette then uses the recent news that Kevin Owens has signed a new multi-year deal with WWE that is reportedly worth $2 to $3 million to the former Universal Champion. I'm not trying to knock him here, I've always said that Kevin Steen, Owens, could work, and he could talk, it's how he has been booked, which is not his fault. Kevin Steen is getting $2 to $3 million a year, and that indicates two things. 1. There is a shortage of talent to begin with. 2. The WWE is embarrassed by just having difference makers handed over on a silver platter to the other side. We are back in a promotional war. If Kevin Steen is worth $2 to $3 million a year, then what are they giving Roman Reigns? 15, 20? They are doing what they started doing 2 years ago, which was upsetting their salary structure, but now they are really upsetting their salary structure because they have to offer more money than they did before to get people to stay. Jim Cornette closes by indicating he believes WWE are trying to see if Tony Khan will be happy to spend the same way WCW did in the mid-90s, and that the perception that it's all one-way traffic in terms of talent movement could hurt WWE. If Tony Khan was in this bidding war, then for once he did the smart thing. When it got to $2 million for Kevin Steen, Khan said keep him. That may be a tactic they are trying and see if they can bid these guys up so that Khan would be the modern-day Eric Bischoff, spend money like a drunken sailor to sign up all the stars, and have an unsustainable payroll. They ain't doing the revenue that WCW did in 1999 at AEW, and WCW still went broke. But maybe they have realized the battle of perception is being lost quickly with the number of people going from WWE to AEW, especially when they were in high-profile positions with their previous employers. This is all a one-sided thing. Is there anybody in AEW that WWE could sign and capitalize on, not mess up and be a top guy for the WWE? I don't know about that. What do you make of Jim Cornette's comments? Let us know in the comments section below. For more wrestling news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling.
After all the talk and speculations made about former TNT champion Sammy Guevara announcing the end of the relationship between him and his fiancée, it looks like a lot of things are changing in Sammy's life. He recently lost the TNT championship to Cody Rhodes, and now he and Tay Conti might be in a relationship. It seems that Sammy and fellow Vlog crew member Tay Conti have decided to stop hiding this relationship. Fans have been speculating about Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti since a long time. Their names trended together after the news of Sammy's breakup came out, and fans even started harassing Tay Conti, which resulted in her disabling her Twitter account. However, now both of them might be dropping hints for fans. Taking a look at the Instagram stories posted by both, in which they can be seen hanging out with a caption that states, "Date night." Additionally, Conti posted a bikini photo in which she guzzled the bubbly with a caption that said, "Living my best life." That post got plenty of attention as Guevara commented with the heart eyes emoji to this post. Moreover, Sammy Guevara followed that up with his own social media post later that day. While posting a shirtless photo, the Spanish god provided the same caption that Conti used. The fact that he used the same caption as Tay Conti was not lost on anyone. If anything, some fans are seeing this as confirmation that the rumors are true. If the rumors about them dating do turn out to be right, we wish them to be happy together and hope that the online harassment is over. For more wrestling news and weekly ratings war, subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time.
Bryan Danielson recently spoke with Busted Open Radio, where he talked about the AEW fans booing him. The audience turned on the former WWE star on AEW Dynamite when he confronted the Hangman. However, Danielson doesn't believe he did anything mean. "I don't know what people are talking about. I thought the people of Virginia were giving me a really tough time. So, I gave them a little bit of a tough time back," he stated. "I don't think anything I said was wrong or even mean. To say, hey, congratulations Hangman Page, you are the world champion. I am a little disappointed it's not Kenny Omega, because that's who I wanted to beat for the AEW championship. I am a little bit disappointed that you're not wrestling tonight, and you haven't been wrestling that much, and I have been wrestling every single week since I've come to AEW. I don't think any of that is overtly mean." Bryan Danielson went on to talk about the fan reaction, admitting that he enjoys being booed. The AEW star then teased that he will keep tapping into that. "I'm not going to lie, I do enjoy being booed," Bryan admitted. "There's something so fun about it. So I might lean into that a little bit more. But there's nothing I said that was wrong or mean or anything like that. Now because of that, I think I am probably going to kick all of his friends' heads in. But I think I would be doing that anyway. I don't consider it a heel turn, I am just being me." Bryan Danielson also spoke about his promo ability. He admitted that he used to be poor at this, but says anything can be learned. Bryan believes that anybody can pick this up, using Dante Martin as an example. For more of the latest news from your favorite wrestling TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time. Eric Bischoff covered the Final Resolution pay-per-view event in 2011 on a recent installment of his 83 Weeks podcast. During it, he explained why TNA had a very low pay-per-view buy for this show despite having a lot of talent. He thinks this is the same reason why TNA wrestling didn't work. "It's been the bane of my existence and frustration over the years with all things TNA, because of what could have been. It kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, about AEW, if the goal is to build a big roster, and TNA did build a big roster, they had some big names there with Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, and at one point Booker T, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and all the others that went through TNA with the idea of, let's get these guys on the roster and the audience will come. No, they won't. You have to do the other stuff right too. It's one thing to have a big roster, and it's another thing to have a big roster and build your business with a great strategic plan and vision, and that's where TNA fell apart. There was no strategic plan, and there was no vision. This pay-per-view is a perfect example of it." Bischoff also went on to explain who was responsible for rebranding TNA as Impact Wrestling. The ideation of TNA was juvenile, prepubescent, let's jerk off to a Sears lingerie catalog. In my humble opinion, it was stupid to start out with. It was even dumber to hold on to it when you're trying to become a national promotion on a high-profile cable outlet in prime time when you're trying to appeal to advertisers. It was as stupid as any idea that I've seen perpetuated for an extended period of time. It was time to drop TNA, but people in TNA didn't want to. They felt like, oh my gosh, we invested so much in this brand, yes, and it was a stupid brand to invest in. It was a dumb idea from the get-go, and you were even dumber to keep throwing tons of money on it, because you don't understand and didn't understand the nature of the television business. It's driven by advertisement sales, and nobody wants to go to their client if you work for an advertising agency and say, especially if that client was a female, "Oh, and let's make it worse, you're just a guy and you're going to pitch this executive on this cool thing called TNA?" On the surface, couldn't somebody have thought about that for 45 seconds and put themselves in somebody else's shoes and try to imagine how hard it is to pitch that? Especially because at that time for TNA in particular, wrestling was a tough sale. Let's make it tougher. Bischoff discussed Spike TV and Viacom, who were the television providers for Impact, finally deciding to rebrand as Impact. He also said there was a lot of backlash from Dixie Carter's parents, who were running the business side of TNA, because they thought the name had nostalgia. It was time, unfortunately the people who were paying for the show, that being Viacom through their cable outlet Spike, said enough, pump the brakes. We're paying the freight not only for this show, but for a large part of the high-profile talent within the show as a separate budget item. Outside of the television licensing agreement, Spike was funding a lot of the big-name contracts Dixie brought in from WWE before I got there, including Mick Foley and Booker T and Sting and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and whoever those people came in. Not all of them, but a good part of the expensive ones were founded by Spike. Finally, Spike pumped the brakes and said, sorry, if we're going to continue with this show and try to sell it, we have to rebrand it. It was a tough battle. There was a lot of pushback internally, mostly from the people who didn't have anything to do with running the business on a day-to-day basis from Texas, that being Panda Energy. Mommy and Daddy, mostly Mommy, didn't want to spend the money, so Spike did. Spike paid for the rebranding, Spike paid for the research. These are things the company should have been doing for themselves, but they didn't and wouldn't, so Spike said, alright, if you won't, we will. Plenty behind-the-scenes drama, it seems. Let us know your take on it in the comments section below. For more wrestling news from your favorite TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time. Between the demise of WCW and the rise of All Elite Wrestling, Jeff Jarrett built TNA Impact as the alternative to World Wrestling Entertainment. Jarrett and his father, Jerry Jarrett, launched TNA in June 2002 and launched the Impact television program in 2004. When asked about his opinion on AEW, Jarrett stated, "The timing when TNA started, coming off the Attitude Era, and the timing when AEW started are radically different worlds. Pre-social media world coming off the Attitude Era. When TBS and TNT canceled wrestling, I couldn't even get a phone call from a network. Fast forward, the big rights fees with NBC and Fox, and the Peacock situation, and Sony around the world and India, and all the different markets, it's a completely different playing field of 2002 and 2019 in the launch period. The climate is completely different. The television ratings are completely different." Jarrett believes that AEW is a viable alternative to WWE and that there should always be an alternative. Jarrett states, "It's the best for business to always have an alternative. It's just what makes business go around. If you're the only game in town, you're not number one because there isn't a number two." For more of the latest news from your favorite wrestling TV shows, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time. Jim Cornette is not always the biggest fan of Tony Khan or All Elite Wrestling. However, recently Cornette has praised Tony Khan for signing Jay Lethal to AEW. Jay Lethal is a veteran of the professional wrestling business, having made his debut all the way back in 2001. He had a great run in TNA, where he got over for his gimmick of impersonating other stars, such as Macho Man. Most notably, he impersonated Ric Flair in what has now become one of his funniest and most iconic segments. Black Machismo Jay Lethal was the only surprise debutant at AEW Full Gear, and Jim Cornette was quite pleased to see him in Tony Khan's promotion. On the Jim Cornette Experience, the legendary booker said, "So now it's AEW again. As people go over the pay-per-view, they see Jay Lethal? By the way, we've to congratulate Tony Khan, you did something right for once." "No, I don't need to congratulate Jay Lethal. He deserves it. Actually, he deserves better. But I congratulate Tony for figuring out that Jay Lethal was available and he could sign him up. He's been there, for 4 years. Jay Lethal has been an untapped resource. He's been in other promotions, has been happy and contractually committed there, but you know, I've always thought that he deserved a top spot where the most people could see what he can do while he still can so." Jay Lethal was introduced to the audience present at the Target Center in Minnesota. The greatest first-generation wrestler greeted the fans before revealing why he was there in AEW. Up till now, he has had great matches on AEW Dark, and with Sammy Guevara. The future looks bright for both Lethal and AEW. For more exciting wrestling news from your favorite wrestling promotions, make sure to subscribe to 25/8 Wrestling. See you next time.